Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half American on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, albeit the Swedish brewery rather more often than the American brewery. I think I've only had one of their own beers actually, but a couple of collaboration brews. But the Swedish brewery I've had lots of different things from, but I know these two are very capable breweries. Now the beer that we're having a look at today seems to have had good write-ups. It's a style that I know both of these breweries do well, so I have to say I'm quite curious to see what happens when they put their heads together. So hopefully this is another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head up towards Stockholm. We're going to go a little bit to the northwest of the main part of the city to Sundbyberg, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Omnipollo. So this particular beer is called 18 Decillion. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and it's a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So this is brewed in collaboration with Equilibrium Brewery, who are from Middletown in the southeast corner of New York State, just a little bit to the northwest of New York City. And yeah, I believe this beer was originally brewed there, but the one that I'm looking at is the Stockholm brewed version. So I was a little bit unsure as to whether I should say that the Omnipollo are the home brewery in this case, or Equilibrium Brewery are the home brewery. But yeah, this version is brewed in Stockholm, so I guess we'll go with that. But this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment, I believe on the 4th of March 2022. But yeah, the start of March anyway. I might not have the date exactly right. But yeah, this one just kind of caught my eye, so I thought, why not have a look at it? It's been a month or two since I had a beer from Omnipollo anyway. But let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Omnipollo and from Equilibrium Brewery. We will return to both of these guys again at some point in the near future, I'm sure, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American beers, and both of those are being added to as and when I get the chance. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Omnipollo first off then, since these guys are the ones who brewed this particular beer. So Omnipollo, as I mentioned to you already, are based in the Stockholm area, and the company was founded back in 2011 by Henrik Fenty, who is a long-time home brewer, and Carl Grandin, who is a clothing designer. So the two had been friends for a wee while, but they decided one day that they were going to start a brewery after having had many discussions about how insular the craft beer scene was both in Sweden and abroad. But they said they wanted to reinvigorate it both from a gastronomic sense and from a stylistic sense. So they thought that this partnership between a home brewer and a designer was very logical actually. And yeah, you have to say Omnipollo, they've got a very distinctive style of art, of course, on many other beers. And yeah, they did become known for those big kind of cakey pastry stout things that they were doing back in the day as well, using a lot of flavour essence in brewing. But the name Omnipollo is derived from omnipotent chicken, so Omnipollo, pollo of course being Spanish for chicken, and these guys were gypsy brewers until 2020. So the first kind of base that they had, if you like, was Omnipollo's hat in Stockholm, and this was a collaboration with Pizza Hut, and it became really quite popular. There was a lot of Omnipollo beers on tap there that you couldn't get elsewhere, and they also had some really good pizza. That is somewhere that I do need to go and film an out and about video, but I've been there twice, if memory serves me correctly. But a little bit later on in 2019 they opened up another bar in Hamburg in Germany, which is still going, and they also have one in Tokyo in Japan these days. They did have a bar in Gothenburg for a little while, but I believe that has now shut down and been taken over by somebody else. I forget exactly who has that bar now. But yeah, the one in Gothenburg, I believe, did shut down. But in March of 2020, they announced that they would open up their own brewery in Sundbyberg in a former church, and this had previously been home to Sundbyberg Köksbryggeri, basically the Sundbyberg's kitchen brewery, if you want to translate it into English. But when they moved in, their brewing capacity started off around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they've scaled it up now so that they can produce around 600,000 litres of beer per year. But until they actually had this facility, they were brewing their beers mainly under contract at different breweries. For example, they were brewing a lot of their beers at the Proefbrouwerij in Lochristenhoofde down near Ghent in Belgium, and I believe they actually brew quite a few things still at Total City over in Svininge on Sjælland in Denmark, because they've got quite a good relationship with the likes of Mikkeller and Toil, of course, too. But yeah, as of March 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 435 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, they've done quite a few different things, but they've got lots and lots of different styles. They're very good when it comes to doing proper traditional brewing as well, but they've also got some really interesting beers that have got lots of different flavour essences and stuff like that in there. So yeah, check out some of their stuff and see what you think. It is pretty interesting. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Omnipollo for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at Equilibrium Brewery then. We're going to go over to the States this time. So Equilibrium Brewery, as I've told you already, are based in Middletown in New York, which is in the southeast corner of the state, just a little bit to the northwest of New York City. And the brewery was founded by Peter Oates and Riccardo Petroni, both of whom studied environmental engineering at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they began their careers together working at an engineering firm. But Peter was also an avid home brewer, while Riccardo had a little bit of a knack for business. And so in 2016, they decided that they were going to turn Peter's hobby into a business, and they founded the company together officially. So they chose the Hudson Valley in Orange County as the location because the density of breweries in this region was pretty low compared to a few other locations that were quite close by, and it was just kind of beginning to develop as a beer location actually, so they thought it was kind of good to ride this wave as well. But the original brewery can be found on Henry Street, and they operated their main brewing operations there until 2019, producing around 2,500 barrels of beer per year. But in March of 2019, they had secured the former TD Bank building on the corner of East Main and South Streets, which took their capacity up to around 12,000 barrels per year once they got it operational. And this location boasts a tap room for 250 people. But they say that they use a lot of scientific principles in their brewing because they want to, they want to create a balance between kind of flavour and drinkability. And this was the reason that they went for the name Equilibrium. And you will see if you have a look at their beers, there's so many different things, different kind of scientific names, which I think are pretty cool. If I remember rightly, the last beer I had from these guys might have been called Harvester of Waves. But yeah, quite often we get American beers over here in Scandinavia in bursts. So when it comes down to it, when I first tried one of the Equilibrium beers, I'm pretty sure I picked the one that I liked the name of the best, that was most physics or chemistry related. So I'm pretty sure it was called Harvester of Waves actually, if I remember rightly. But yeah, they do some really good stuff, and their beers seem to come over here fairly regularly. I think they've got quite a bit of excess capacity, and so they export all the stuff that doesn't really sell in the States, which is kind of cool. But as of March 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 450 different kinds of beer. And yeah, I think they're best known over here in Europe for their different New England IPAs. I haven't seen other styles from them as far as memory goes, but maybe when I go over to the States later in the year, that is something that we can have a look at. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Equilibrium Brewery for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and actually have a look at the beer itself. That's everything for your history section. So, yeah. There you go. As you can see, the artwork is a little bit different, but you can see there is the Omnipollo brewery symbol. And then if you go up there, there is the Equilibrium Brewery one. The artwork and the writing and stuff on the back is a little bit more akin to what we've seen from Omnipollo in the past, and this is a 440 milliliter can. So it's not far off. I guess the Equilibrium one probably would have been in an American pint can, which is 473 milliliters. But yeah, it says this one, enthusiastically crafted at our church brewery on Sturegatan 41 in Sundbyberg, Sweden. So yeah, looks pretty cool. That is somewhere that I do need to go and visit actually, is the Omnipollo church brewery. Would be pretty cool. But as you can see, it's got a nice kind of plain silver top on the can there, 440 milliliters. I want to say that I paid about 55, or I think it was 60 actually. I think I paid 60 Swedish kroner for this one. So that translates to roughly €6, about £5 sterling, and I guess somewhere in the region of like $7 American. So I don't know how that compares to the prices over in the States. But yeah, I'm not sure of the significance of the 18 Decillion number, but yeah, basically it's an 18 and 30, I believe 30 zeros after it. So yeah, you can see that on the side there. I wonder if that's just how many zeros they could kind of fit on it without it looking stupid. But yeah, there must be a scientific meaning behind that. Maybe it's the number of hop pellets or something that went into the beer. Who knows? Well, no, that would be stupid actually. Forgetting how big these numbers are. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, should be pretty cool. But let's crack this guy open, and we'll get on with the tasting then. So this is an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. It's hopped with Idaho 7, I wrote this down, Idaho 7, Galaxy and Strata, this one. So we know all of these hops quite well. All three of them are American. Idaho 7 comes in about 14% alpha acid. It gives you lots of lovely kind of soft, juicy fruits like, you know, apricot, pineapple, a little bit of mango as well. Galaxy, oh sorry, I've told you lies. Galaxy is Australian. So Galaxy gives you about 14% alpha acid as well. Quite a strong passion fruity note and a lot of juicy mango, but also some nice kind of juicy pineapple and stuff in there. So yeah, Australian hop. And then Strata is a little bit newer than the other ones. So it's about 16% alpha acid. It is American, definitely. And it gives you a nice kind of melon note, but also a little bit of strawberry and things. So yeah, it is pretty good. Yeah, quite a powerful hop actually, so I'm curious to see how it turns out in this beer then. So anyway, that's everything you need to know about the beer itself. But as you can see, we've poured this one now. It poured with about a 1/4 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That's faded away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer actually. It's just kind of left a little bit of wisp kind of on the top. There's a nice kind of thicker white foamy ring on this one, which I think goes together very, very well actually. But yeah, the colour of this one's quite interesting. I think on the camera to you guys it's appearing a little bit more kind of orange than it is, but to me it's actually a very, very deep, rich yellow colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will of course affect that as well, but when it comes to New England IPAs, you don't often have to care about this. Now, in terms of the haziness of this one, I wouldn't say this is one of the more kind of soupy, gloopy ones that I've come across, but it does have a fair bit of opacity to it. It does look pretty damn opaque, but yeah, there's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, it does look pretty much as you would expect of this beer. But yeah, remember the level of haze in these beers, that depends on the oak content, the wheat content, and also the yeast to a degree as well. This can vary from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe, so there's no real rule about the alcohol content and things, which you would expect, to be honest, because obviously a higher alcohol beer is going to have more oats and more wheat in it. But yeah, it doesn't work like that exactly. So yeah, certainly looks the part of a New England double IPA. I don't think we need to say any more about the appearance of this one, to be honest with you. So let's have a closer look at the aroma of this beer then and just see how we go. So yeah, this should be quite nice. Yeah, that is pretty good actually. When it's got a nice big, the first impression of this one is it's got a nice big kind of, you can smell the malty character in it, and it does smell pretty fresh, but the fruity juicy characters are quite oily. The green component I don't find to be too pungent in this one, so that's a basic first impression of the aroma in this one. But yeah, I think that's quite interesting for sure. So the malty base in this one, yeah, the malty base in this beer I think is quite interesting. Now, as I've said to you before, for me, when it comes to New England IPAs, there's sort of 6 things you need to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these beers. Some of them can be a bit farmhousey and yeasty, some of them can be raggedy and grainy. These 2 elements are more common in American brewed New England IPAs, in my opinion. But then in New England IPAs from everywhere, sometimes they can be wheaty and bitey, oaty creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or they can be a little bit sweet. And quite often you'll get many of these elements kind of showing face in these beers. But yeah, the aroma out of this one is quite nice. On the malty side of things, there's definitely a nice little bit of a kind of bready, there's a little bit of a sort of bready, bread crusty sort of backbone to it, so you can smell that in there. For me, there's quite a dense white bready note from the barley malt. You can smell that there. There's a little bit of that fluffy white bready barley malt kind of thing, and then you've got a more kind of dense wheaty character as well. So yeah, aroma-wise, that is pretty nice. So yeah, little bit of bread crust, a kind of more fluffy, a more sort of fluffy white bready kind of thing, and then also a little bit of also a little bit more of a kind of dense wheaty note to it as well. But yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business and that side of things as well. It works really, really nicely. So on the on top of the wheaty layer as well, I'd say the wheaty notes actually give you a good little bit of bite in the back of the nose, so that's kind of interesting too. But on top of that, you do get a fair little bit of sweetness out of this beer. So for me, there's a wee bit of that Werther's Original type note. This beer does have a fair degree of sweetness to it, a little bit of Werther's Original, which I do quite like. And then yeah, on top of that, you do have a little bit of a sort of, you do get a little hint of just a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit and a kind of sweet caramel. So yeah, it is pretty nice. It is pretty nice the way that this goes together actually. So yeah, this one, it's a nice smelling beer from the malty side of things. I think this is going to be pretty good as well when we actually have a taste of it. But yeah, for me, it's got a good balance. There's a bit of the kind of lighter bread, a bit of the thicker wheaty notes out of it as well, and it has a nice wee bit of sweetness. So this is going to be good when we actually look at the flavour. But let's have a little look at the hoppy side of things then. So for me, this beer is for me, I think this beer, on the green component, there's a little bit of earthiness in there, but there's quite a bright floral aromaticity as well. So yeah, nice kind of bright floral aromaticity, but you've also got a good bit of a sort of lighter, grassy sort of thing to this one as well. The grassiness has a wee bit of zesty character, and I think that's going to come from the strata because of that kind of melon note that it has. But yeah, green component for me is like a sort of deep floral note. I think that's the most prominent bit. Little bit of yeah, definitely a little bit of earthiness there, wee bit of a kind of floral aromaticity, and also a bit of a lighter grassy side of things to it as well. So I do like how that goes together in this beer. So yeah, this one for me gets a thumbs up on that side of the aroma. But let's look at the fruity things before we taste it. Yeah, on the fruity side of things for me, it's got a lovely kind of tropical note to it. You definitely get that kind of big passion fruit from the Galaxy. Absolutely, there's lots of juicy mango, and that's going to come both from Galaxy and from Idaho 7. Absolutely. But underneath that, see if you sugar the beer up a little bit, you start to get that slightly more powerful melon from the strata, which is interesting. Because normally, I've found that when I've had strata before, it can be quite a dominant hop. The other one that does that with the melon notes is cashmere. Cashmere can be very, very powerful with those melon qualities. So these are 2 hops that I always find you have to be a little bit careful with, actually. But yeah, definitely for me, this leans more towards the tropical side of things. You've got passion fruit, big juicy mango, bit of an oily melon in there, but then you do start to get the pineapple and the apricots and stuff like this in this one. But yeah, certainly on the front of the nose, you can get that, you get a nice juicy pineapple, but there's also a wee bit of that kind of slightly strawberry character out of it. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this one, I think, is pretty nice. I do like how all of that kind of pieces together in this beer. The fruity, juicy side of things is pretty great actually. So it gets a big thumbs up from me on that side of things. But yeah, lovely kind of juicy, but also quite oily character out of it. I think it smelled a bit more oily in the beginning than it did later on. But as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we had a taste of this one then. So yeah, this one is the 18 Decillion, an 8.5% New England IPA from Omnipollo in Stockholm and Equilibrium Brewery in Middletown in the southeastern New York State. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skull, cheers. Yeah, it's pretty nice actually. It's a bit lighter than I was expecting it would be, but still, it is pretty damn nice actually. So thumbs up to Omnipollo for this one. This has turned out pretty solidly, I have to say, and Equilibrium of course too. But yeah, first impression of this is that it's quite oily, but at the same time quite juicy. So yeah, I think that it definitely holds favour in my opinion. I certainly do like how that side of it goes together. So it gets a big thumbs up from me in that particular regard. So yeah, I like this one. I do like it. So let's try and break it down and into the different things as we always do and describe the flavour for you properly. So yeah, it's actually, the other thing that I'm getting from this one is it's actually quite a bit more oaty leaning than I had picked up in the aroma. This one definitely smelled as if it was a bit more kind of wheaty and stuff like that in the aroma, but a lot more oaty presence to it, and it's very kind of smooth and creamy in that regard too. So yeah, interesting, definitely interesting. Anyway, on the malty side of things then, so let's focus on the middle third of the palate. So you've got a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality there. You can taste that you can feel that sort of forms the backbone of the beer. On top of that, you have a little bit more of you've got a kind of soft, fluffy, white bready kind of character, which I really do like. So yeah, bit of bread crust, soft, fluffy, white bready character. That's the barley malt side of things, and on top of that, you can feel a thicker, wheaty character to the beer as well, which is great. So yeah, that works very nicely. So yeah, bread crust, soft white bread, then you get the thicker wheaty notes in there, just thickening it up, and on top of that you can feel the nice kind of creamy oats. And the oats do, as I say, have a fair bit of presence to them. There's a really lovely creamy character to this, and you can tell that this beer's quite fresh. As I've told you before in reviews, for me, when a New England IPA gets a little bit older, you can feel that the oaty side of things kind of dries up a wee bit, so that's quite interesting. You can feel that it's got a slightly drier oatiness compared to some other things, but yeah, it goes together really nicely in that sense. So yeah, lovely kind of oaty, creamy side to it. It's got a nice big circle in the middle of the palate there, so you get that big oaty kind of creamy note in there. That forms the base. You can feel that the oats are thickest down the kind of middle line of your tongue, but as you move further out towards the side of your palate, they just kind of soften up a wee bit and become a wee bit sweeter. But yeah, in the middle of your palate, you've got a nice big circle there. You've got that sort of Werther's Original type note to it. So yeah, lovely big kind of oily, butterscotchy, butter candy kind of thing. There's a wee bit more of a kind of sweet caramel in the middle of the palate there as well. You get a wee bit of that straight up sweet caramel in the dead centre of your palate. Then as you move further out from that, it's a little bit more kind of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. You certainly get a little bit more of that coming out of the beer. So yeah, I really like how that goes together. So it gets a thumbs up from me on the malty side of things. But yeah, I'm surprised at how oaty leaning this one is compared to what I suspected it was going to be from the aroma. But that's your middle third of the palate. Let's focus on the back third of your palate quickly then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up there. So a nice wee bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. Then the base. Yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you get a little bit more of an intense bread crust there. You can feel it's a little bit more kind of grainy and dry, but then on top of the, on top of that, you start to get a little bit more, you get the thicker white bready note there from the barley malt, and again, that's a little bit more grainy, so you can feel that's a little bit thicker, and then on top of that, you get the wheat, and the wheat is definitely more bitey in the back third of the palate than it is in other parts of it. But yeah, sitting on top of all of that, you've got the kind of yeasty characters of the beer. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer, this one is kind of quite straightforward. You get a little bit, you can feel there's a little bit more of a kind of a dense, doughy, bready character to it, and there's a wee bit of a kind of woody, crackery, bread crusty sort of vibe as well. So again, I quite like how this goes together. So that gets a thumbs up from me. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think works very, very nicely. So yeah, it does get a big, big thumbs up from me. So on the malty, on the back third of the palate then, you've got a nice big, you do have a nice big, you can feel that it's a taller, you can feel that the back third of the palate is definitely taller. Flavour is taller, but then as you come further forward, the flavours just squash together a wee bit and condense, they condense a little bit more. So yeah. The way that the malty yeasty side of things in this beer goes together, it's nothing unusual, but I think it works quite nicely. But as I say, I was surprised at how oaty this one is, but definitely gives you a bit more of a wheaty presence in the back of the palate. But yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of things. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice wee bit of earthiness in there. But yeah, as you move further forward, it's got a nice big floral aromatic note to it. It's actually quite spicy and quite deep in that sense, so you do get quite a bit of spice out of this one. Now remember, New England IPAs are mainly reliant on late addition and dry hopping, which don't give you all that much bitterness. West Coast IPAs have both of those in addition to early addition hopping, which is the one that really gives you the big bitterness. But this one I think might have a little bit of early addition hopping in it, just to give you that wee touch of bitterness in there. But round the front curve of the palate, it's got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy sort of thing. And the grassy character's a wee touch zesty, but I find the grassiness in this beer fairly wet, to be honest with you. But it works. It does work. Let's focus on the front third of the palate then. And let's focus on the front third of the palate and the malty and fruity side of things then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a nice little bit of a bready build up in there, a wee bit of bread crust. Then the base of the front third of your palate is a little bit more kind of smooth and white bready actually. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. But yeah, the way that works is nice. The fruity side of this beer is quite nice. You do get a bit more melon out of it in the flavour than you were picking out in the aroma. But as I say, Strata could be quite a powerful hop in that sense. So, yeah, the front third of the palate then. So, the base of that, as I say, it's a little bit kind of a smooth white bready sort of thing, but on the back half of that front third of the palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of that oily melon flavour underneath, but toward the back, you do get a bit of a more powerful passion fruit, and that's going to be the Galaxy. But on top of that, you've got a lovely, lovely big juicy kind of mango note there, but you start to get wee bits of apricot, you get little bits of pineapple and stuff like that as well, and that's the Idaho 7 that's giving you that. The mango is a mix of the Galaxy and the Idaho 7 coming together, but then the softer apricot-y, pineapple-y notes are definitely more to do with the Idaho 7. But yeah, you can feel that slightly oily, melony note from the Strata sitting in there as well. As you move further forward into the front half of the front third of your palate, you can feel a wee bit of the kind of apricot-y papaya flavours. They just push further forward, but then you've also got a nice wee touch of a kind of oily strawberry note coming out of this one, which I do like. Right on the tip of the tongue, you can feel that nice oily, juicy strawberry from the Strata as well. But the fruity side of this beer for me gets a big thumbs up. I think this works very, very nicely actually. So yeah, goes together well. Certainly goes together well. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, I think it's quite juicy and it is quite oily, but yeah, it's got a nice balance for sure. But I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. I think we can round off this review with a quick look at the mouthfeel then. So overall, I would say that this beer kind of pushes toward the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is pretty smooth actually. It's got a nice kind of smooth but kind of creamy carbonation to it. So yeah, I like how that, I do like how that goes about its business for sure. Yeah, I think it's fair to describe this beer as being a little bit more oaty and creamy rather than anything else, but you do get a bit more yeastiness out of it later on. So yeah, I think in terms of IBUs, we're talking about 30 IBUs, which is fairly standard for this one, although it does have a wee bit of lingering bitterness there. The malt base, as we said, it's got a wee bit of graininess underneath, but a big smoothness and a slight sweetness to it, so everything that you kind of want. And the fruity side of the beer, it leans more towards the tropical side of things rather than anything else, but you do have that kind of oily, powerful melony note from the strata lingering in there too. But overall, as I say, it's a really nice, solid New England IPA. With this style these days, there's so many of them on the market, it's difficult to find one that kind of blows you away. But I think this one is pretty damn solid. I wouldn't complain about this at all. I think this is very, very nicely done. So it's a thumbs up from me. We can't really ask for much more from this style these days than what this one gives you. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Omnipollo and from Equilibrium, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point soon. But this one was the 18 Decillion New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Omnipollo in Stockholm and Equilibrium Brewing from Middletown in the southeast of New York State in the northeast, New England, America. So yeah, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.